Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets here live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney riding solo here with you. We have a Monday Night Football game to talk about. We're going to get to some of the takeaways that we have from Week 10. I thought it was a very, very entertaining Week 10, especially the early games. I think I saw a tweet from NFL this morning from their Twitter account saying it was an NFL record, five games finished with field goals, like game-winning field goals. I don't know. Don't quote me on that one, but we did definitely get 5 game-winning field goals yesterday, and a lot of action in the early games coming right down to the wire, capped off with just the worst Sunday Night Football game of all time. George was saying it in the green room before we got going as well. It's just not a lot of fun between the Raiders and the Jets last night, and we easily got the under when it came to that game. I thought a decent Week 10 over at ftnbets.com, more right than wrong. We can take that, and we'll move on. We'll try to have a pretty solid finish here, because the props have been very tough. For me in the NFL, I've been on the wrong side of a lot of these props by like a catcher, yard or two, but I thought yesterday was pretty good in the free article over at FTN Bets with the team as well. I saw a lot of winners there. Kyle Phillips, our guy, we had him for catches and receiving yards, and Amon-Ra St. Brown just continues to ball out. And shocked to see his receiving yard prop at 83. He just hits the century mark every single game. He's such a good player. I was having a chat this morning with a few of my friends and just thinking about like good draft picks over the past couple of years, and Amon-Ra being a 4th round pick, right? The Lions found a player in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the best 1-2 punch, I think, on the ground, it's got to be between Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. They both ate yesterday. So we got some recaps, some takeaways from Week 10, and we'll take a look at the Week 11 schedule, early look at some of the lines and spreads. It's way too early to be talking start or sit, but I will address a couple players that I like moving forward and into this week as well. We'll be with you for sure on Thursday and Friday this week. A little bit of a slip up on my part on Friday, but we'll be with you on Friday to give some picks and some start and sit stuff on Thursdays. We'll tee up the Thursday Night Football game, and then next week is American Thanksgiving, so we won't be with you on Thursday, but I'll have a Wednesday show where I'll tee up the 3 Thursday games on Turkey Day, and then there'll be a Black Friday game. And guess what? It's the Jets again. All right. I guess the NFL really wanted to see Aaron Rodgers on primetime this year, and reports from Rodgers that he's hoping to be, ready to go by December. I still don't fully believe in his Jets will be out of the picture, I think, by then anyways. But so we'll tee up tonight's football game. Some takeaways, hit the waiver wire. We'll get some playoff pitcher stuff. We get some MVP odds and Super Bowl odds for you guys as well. So a lot to get to here. If you guys are watching here live, Deesh is in the house, Albert in the house. Good morning, everybody. Smash the like button if you can. If you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, we do appreciate you rate, reviewing, and subscribing. And again, if you want to hop on over to our YouTube page, you can subscribe. All these shows, of course, free. We have a lot of content. George is a busy guy setting up Randall's weekly recap. Aaron Schatz went live this morning. I was with Jake Seeley and All in Football, Hoops with Noops. Randall's got the college basketball show. I do want to give a shout out to the team, Kutri and Mike Randall. These guys are absolutely killing it. And Frank too. Frank 14-6 weekend, 6-1 on Sunday. That was from the NBA crew. Randall's 21-3 over his last 24 in college basketball. What? And then also Kutri is up like 40 units here in college basketball over the last. He's got 39 units. Randall's got 10. Didn't the college basketball season just start like a week ago? How are these guys up like 50 plus units? It's pretty impressive stuff. I don't have I love myself some college basketball, but I try to keep it, to the big 4 here on this show. I can't be giving college basketball betting advice when these guys are just rock solid. So still time to join the FTN Bets family and look for a promo code. If you're on the fence, we'll have a promo code coming pretty soon with American Thanksgiving come out as well. George, I don't know when that is official. But I know George has already done some really good artwork for it as well. So that's a little bit of a secret. You want to wait a couple days so you get a little bit of a discount there. But promo code Meaney, save yourself a little bit of cash. George is telling me on Monday, so a week from today, look for that. And with the FTN betting package, you get all the picks across all sports and tools and projections. I've really found some edges when it comes to rushing attempts, and I got one for you tonight as well. And we can just start there. But Josh Jacobs was at 16.5 rushing attempts. And one of the big takeaways for me over the weekend, it's been 2 games now without Josh McDaniels, the identity's changed a little bit. This is what I've really felt like the Raiders should be anyways, is a run-first team with Jacobs, who led the NFL in rushing yards last year. He was a beast, and it was just a slow start. Wasn't getting the rock all that much, but the last couple games, 26 carries, 27 carries. So no sweat job there when it comes to those the rushing prop anyways for Josh Jacobs. Deesh, Packers lost, and Love looked better. What more could a Packers fan want? Won't be bad enough to get a QB, but I'd love Marv, which means they won't do it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this draft unfolds. I thought the Bears, beating Carolina was great for them, owning Carolina's pick, and then potentially, being in the conversation of Chicago's really interesting to me and what's going to happen over these next couple of weeks, because they could decide that they want to hang on to Fields and then get Marv, and then also like a defensive player. And then I think that would be pretty solid, but there's going to be a lot of teams in this quarterback conversation. One team we know for sure got themselves a quarterback, and that's CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Let's get into tonight though. Let's talk about this Monday Night Football game where you got the 7-minute timestamp here. We are in Bills, Broncos. 7-point favorites for Buffalo here. They're massive, massive favorites, of course, on the money line at -305, and Denver checking in at +280. Use the prop shop and the parlay calculator to get the best possible odds. I am seeing +280 at FanDuel if you want to back Denver for the upset here to wrap up Week 10, and the Bills at -335. So this line has moved. At least the money line has moved quite a bit. You're not going to be able to get that 305, and we're not suggesting any -300 plays on Mean Streets anyways. But touchdown favorites here today. I think that the Bills, in my own pool where it was 7.5 heading into yesterday, I did pick Denver. Just everything that I've seen from Buffalo over the past couple weeks. Defensively, they just don't have it at the moment. Missing Milano and Tre'Davious White has really kind of put some holes inside that defense. And just the past couple of weeks, you go back to even Jacksonville, Week 5, the game overseas, they lost by 5. Week 6, they beat the Giants by 5. They were massive favorites in that second. Against the Patriots, they were favorites, touchdown favorites. They lost that game by 4, a last-minute drive by Mac Jones and company. And Mac Jones, again, another brutal game from him. And I would imagine they'll make the switch now. I think it's Zappy season, but it's not going to change in New England. But they lost that game late, and then they were at home on Monday night. I believe that was Monday night, may have been Sunday night. They played in primetime, I know, against the Bucs. They won that game 24-18, but I wasn't really impressed with what I saw from them. And I liked Josh Allen spreading it around in that game. It wasn't just Stephon Diggs. Spread it around, and we'll talk about a couple other weapons. Kincaid's been good over the past couple of weeks. Shakir has been good over the past couple of weeks as well. But that was a game that they almost lost at the end as well. And then Cincinnati, I don't think that they were really ever in that game against the Bengals, and they lost by a touchdown in that game. So this is the Broncos. They've been playing pretty bad all year. It's a team that has allowed a lot of rushing yards, the most yards per carry on the season. They've really struggled to stop running backs, but they've actually been pretty good over the last couple of weeks. They didn't completely shut down the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Twice they played them over the last 3 weeks, but they did an okay job against them as well. I mean, the Jets, Week 5, I don't think we can dive into that too much. The Jets did win that football game, but defensively, I thought they were actually okay in that spot. Against the Chiefs, they only allowed 19 points in Kansas City at Arrowhead. And then they played Green Bay and the Packers, who can't move the football. And they managed to squeak out a win there. But again, I thought defensively they were pretty solid. And then against the Chiefs, they lost that game 24-9 and coming out of the bye here. I think defensively they've been okay over the past couple weeks. And the Bills have just been also okay. So I think there's a possibility here of a backdoor cover potentially. If this moves to 6.5, I'd kind of lean with the Bills. It's a stay away for me here. As I mentioned, I jumped on the 7.5, but we got some props here that I like and a couple that I put in the tracker a few days ago. So we could see some odds movement, some line movement. This is the number when I put it in at ftnbets.com. This is the number, the best possible number that I got over at ftnbets.com, and then the prop shop and the parlay calculator. So I'll start here with Javonte Williams at over 13.5 rushing yards for Javonte. I thought that the training wheels came off of him a couple of weeks ago. We saw Javonte Williams rack up 27 carries on the ground, which was really, really nice to see, because it's just, he was definitely a slow start because significant injury, 13 carries week 1, 12 week 2, 11 week 3, got hurt week 4, didn't play week 5, came back week 6, 10 for 52. I thought he looked okay. Then this is where the past couple games is where we really start to see the uptick for Javonte Williams and the usage. 15 for 82 against the Packers, 27 for 85 against the Chiefs. And I've been saying this all year before the injuries in the secondary started to pile up for Buffalo. If there was a weakness for this Bills team, it is the ground game. They've allowed a lot of explosive runs. They've allowed the 3rd most yards per carry. And if you're Denver coming into Buffalo, you want to try to establish the run game a little bit to try to keep Josh Allen and the offense off the field as much as you can. They're 7-point dogs here. So 13.5, we have them for 15 carries over to FTNfantasy.com. With some of the projections. So I think he lives in the 17 to 18 range here. And if he can get anything going on the ground early, like let's say they get the ball early and they have a couple, they move the chains in the first couple of possessions, they lean on the ground game here just a touch. And I still like the catch prop here as well. I got 2.5 receptions at plus 126. I mean, Javonte Williams has 17 catches this season in really just, we'll call it 7 games here with some of the injuries. But 3+ grabs in back-to-back games. He's had at least 3 catches in 3 of his last 4 games. So we could see him still hit this carry mark early, and potentially in the second half, if the Bills are rolling, we could see a couple dump-offs. But what I've noticed from Russell Wilson since he's been a Bronco is that he is no problem, no matter who the head coach is, with Peyton or Daniel Hackett last year. Javonte Williams is a player in the air for Russell Wilson. You can go back and look at last season before the injury happened. 12 targets, 11 grabs. He had 4 targets, 5 targets. Like his first 3 games with Russ, he racked up over 20 targets. And I've seen the usage over the past couple of weeks as well for Javonte Williams. So taking the over, I got these ranked in order of how I like them. Javonte Williams at over 13.5 rushing attempts at minus 110. Javonte Williams at over 2.5 grabs at plus 126. The receiving yards is around 19.5. I'd rather the catches, because even though he's getting a lot of the targets and a lot of the catches, he's only topped the 19.5 in one game. 3 grabs for 13 last week, had the receiving touchdown, 3 for 14 against the Packers in week 7. As for Diggs, over 6.5 at minus 130 and over 85.5 receiving yards, he is going to see Surtain. Patrick Surtain, according to our wide receiver cornerback matchup tool, is on the left side around 50% of the time. So he moves around a little bit, and so does Diggs. Diggs moves around a little bit as well. This is a guy that, could play in the slot a little bit. We'll talk about Shakir in a second. Could move on the left side, could move on the right side. But again, looking at some of the wide receiver quarterback matchup tools, I have the exact numbers here for you guys. It was 57% on the right side, 38% on the left side, not going to play in the slot. Looking at our shadow index, he had a game against Devontae Adams where he shadowed him like 66% of Adams' routes. He was on him. It was one of the highest marks, and I love the shadow index tool. It'll dive into a lot of just corners, who shadow and who don't, and sometimes it's a big surprise. Like one of the highest was Lattimore on Mike Evans, and of course those guys have gone back for quite some time. Some really good matchups there, but I'm not too worried about this with Diggs. The over 6.5 at 130 and 85.5 at minus 115. Diggs is still going to eat. He gets a lot of targets. If this game is tight, Josh Allen will lean on him. I have noticed Josh Allen has spread the ball around over the past couple weeks. Dalton Kincaid's been a big player in the game. for the Buffalo Bills over the past couple weeks, ever since Dawson Knox went down. And then also Shakir that you saw on the board. We've seen a little bit of Gabe Davis in there as well. And they still can't get a lot of consistency. I'll be interested in seeing if they do lean on James Cook here a little bit, but the past couple games from James Cook haven't been impressed. Is Leonard Fournette going to get a little bit of run? I'm just not. I don't want to recommend putting any of your hard-earned bucks on this Bills backfield because it's been a mess for the past few years. Haven't really been able to figure this thing out. Like if you're looking for a long shot touchdown call, anytime touchdown or first time, I would maybe consider Latavius Murray as a rushing touchdown. But even last week, we didn't see any run from him. Josh Allen likes to call his own number inside the red zone. James Cook, his red zone usage is just really non-existent. He hasn't been getting a lot of looks. He's between the 20s type of a runner. So I'm staying away, even though it's a good matchup against the Broncos and they allow a lot on the ground. I am staying away from the running backs in the prop world. As for Diggs, as I mentioned, they can move him around. They can get him around away from Surtain. Surtain's actually given up some big plays. And our wide receiver cornerback matchup tool, this is graded as like one of the better matchups for Stephon Diggs. So I'll lean with Diggs and Allen getting the best of Patrick Surtain here. And also, if you don't want to just take those as singles, you could, for those that are at Bet365, I was thinking about this rather than the 6.5 and the over 85.5. We have him for over 90, 93 receiving yards. So I do believe that there's an edge here for the receiving yards, more so than the reception. But Bet365 will allow you to do these milestone parlays. So you can do Stephon Diggs at 6+ catches and 75+ receiving yards, and that's minus 140. It does seem like, oh, wow, you need 2 of these to get to minus 140. Drinking a lot of juice for that. But the 6+ and the 75+, that's a little bit more, that's easier to hit. But I do think that he's going to top 85.5. And I also think that he could flirt with 100. And there's some really fun milestone stuff that you can do with that as well. So we'll take this one over 6.5 at minus 130 and over 85.5 at minus 115 here. And consider the milestone if you want to be a little bit more conservative, because I think if he gets 6+ catches, he's going to flirt with this number. And he's been getting a lot of targets. We know that. And a lot of targets early in football games as well. As for Khalil Shakir, we've seen an uptick from him over the past couple of weeks, and uptick in the slot as well. As I mentioned, Diggs, they can move him around, maybe play a little bit of slot there to get rid of, to get away from Surtain. But overall, over the last 3 weeks, 14 targets for Shakir, and he's caught all 14 of them. The uptick in the role in the slot, running more routes, playing more snaps, and according to our DVOA statistics, the Broncos have struggled against slot wide receivers, 31st against slot wideouts here. I like Dalton Kincaid as well. 5.5 catches is plus money. I thought is a little steep for Dalton Kincaid, even though the targets have been there. I have him scoring a touchdown tonight. The Broncos have been one of the worst teams in football against the tight end position. So he's certainly in play. If you have Dalton Kincaid on your fantasy squad, you're looking for double-digit fantasy points from him today, I think you're going to get it. He's had double-digit fantasy points in 3 straight games, 8 targets, 8 grabs, and 75 yards against New England, and they were good. They are good against tight ends. Against the Bucs, 7 targets, 5 grabs, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Like to see that touchdown, more looks, running more routes, especially inside the red zone. And then last week against the Bengals, the worst team in football against tight ends, 11 targets, 10 grabs, and 81 receiving yards. He did have a drop there. But this week here against the Broncos, they've allowed the second most fantasy points to the tight end position this year. So it's a good spot for Kincaid, mixed in with the fact that he's playing more snaps, he's running more routes. We just look at the Broncos game log overall against tight ends. They've only allowed 3 touchdowns to the position, and they have played Travis Kelce twice. So that hurts a little bit. But overall, I stayed away from it because there was only 3 tight ends that had 6 catches against them, and 2 were Kelce. Like one, he had 9 for $124. Another one, he had 6 for 58. And the other tight end was Cole Kmet with 7 grabs and 85 receiving yards. Now, a few of these tight ends that they played, not great, right? Like they played the Jets and Conklin. Luke Musgrave had 4 for 30 against them in week 7. Austin Hooper, week 1, not doing anything. And Logan Thomas not doing much, but he did find the end zone. So I think I'd rather just take the touchdown here at plus 210. I believe that's over at FanDuel, again, the prop shop there. And I'm diving into Shakir. I think if I would have picked one of the two, I like them both, but the catches for me, I would take the catch at over 3.5. But I have seen the uptick for him, the usage in the slot, and then the matchup is just great. on the other side of the football. And then there's Russell Wilson here at 19.5 rushing yards. This isn't the first time we've actually went to Russell Wilson here on Mean Streets for a rushing yard prop. I think we had him on Thursday Night Football when Prop God joined us a little bit. The last 4 games for Russell Wilson, his rushing yard numbers have looked like this: 29, 31, 21, and 30. He's averaging 25 rushing yards per game. The last couple of years, he averaged 18 and 13. So he's running a lot more this season. So I'm going to take the rushing yard prop at 19.5. And that's where I'm at for the game. I think the Bills win this one. I think there's a chance of the backdoor cover here. I would actually maybe lean on it's a high number here, but over 47.5, just with the way that the Bills can score and the way that their defense is playing at the moment. And Russ has actually been pretty good. Like, Russ has had a really nice bounce back season from a fantasy standpoint. He's been a QB1 this year. You look at some of the numbers that he's had some big passing games. And Courtland Sutton is a guy, if you're looking for another touchdown call, maybe Courtland Sutton's a guy that's got 5 touchdowns on the season. I believe he's been scoring. And Russell Wilson, he's had 2 that always trips me up. 2 games of 300 yards. He's got 3 games of 3 passing touchdowns this season as well. A couple dud games, of course. The one in Kansas City is expected against the Super Bowl champs. And then he played the Chiefs last time we saw the Broncos. He only had $114, but he had 3 passing touchdowns in that game. And as I mentioned for Courtland Sutton, I think the touchdown calls for me today would be like a Josh Allen rushing touchdown. I think he finds the end zone. He finds the end zone almost every single week. And then Courtland Sutton's got the 6 touchdowns on the season, a TD in 3 straight games. And but I do like Dalton Kincaid, and that would be my favorite touchdown call there for today. What do we got here? Albert in the house. We said what up to Deesh. We got Bruzees here. Sup, Meaney, Tank. Oh man, and Christian Watson, right? It's just another game with Christian Watson. We talked about him being a sit and not holding on to him anymore. Perk in the house. Hi, Chris. Welcome in. We got T Money Reacts in the house. Man, I'm up 4 right now, and he has Josh Allen. I have Javonte Williams. I lost, huh? Most likely, hopefully it's a 4-point passing touchdown league for you, but maybe if Javonte can find the end zone. If Javonte can find the end zone, you can run on the Bills, right? I like the catches. I think that Javonte ends up with, let's see, what can we project Javonte for? I'd say he is 17 rushing attempts for 68 yards, 3 catches for 19. You're going to need a touchdown because Josh Allen seems to, have 2 or 3 touchdowns a game, right? He's juiced for the 2 passing touchdowns, and he basically runs one in just about every week. So yeah, you would need Javonte to find the end zone for you, and good luck. Hopefully you get it done there. McBride is everything I want Waller to be and more. Yeah, tough go for Waller. I'm not here to toot my own horn, but he was an easy fade for me this year, just given the health and over 30. But the Giants, man, they look just so pathetic, right? It's on offense. And we talked about Saquon as a sit on Thursday, too. And I got a lot of heat from Giants Nation. You can't sit Saquon. He's the heartbeat of the offense. And I get it. And Saquon's fantastic. And the matchups moving forward, maybe a little bit better for him. But heading into the second half against the Cowboys yesterday, the Cowboys had more points, 28, I believe, than the Giants had yards. It's just a tough spot for Saquon. He ended up, with 66 rushing yards, which is okay, but still just like 6 fantasy points for you, right? He's not doing anything through the year. They can't move the ball. I know they got the Eagles come playoff time. And what are you going to do? You got Saquon, you roll him out because of the upside there. But I would try to stay clear of every New York Giant if I could. But McBride, great stuff. I thought we'd see a little bit more from Kyler or from Hollywood in that game, but McBride looks like a beauty, right? These tight ends that you picked up off the waiver wire, Ferguson, McBride, Kincaid may have been dropped with the slow start. Kincaid kind of quiet couple weeks for Laporta. Yesterday was a little quiet in the matchups. Moving forward, I think Detroit's going to blow a lot of teams out here in the last few weeks of the season. So we may not see a lot from Sam Laporta, but I still view him as a top 5 tight end. But McBride is right there knocking on the door. And I believe we said this on Thursday's show. I know a lot of Taysom Hill talk over the past couple weeks, but Hawkinson's season, like it's Kelsey, it's Hawkinson, it's Andrews, it's Laporta, it's Kittle. And then it's like McBride and Ferguson over I still like those guys over Taysom Hill because they're getting targets, they're running routes, and Taysom is lining up more as a wide receiver than a tight end and as a quarterback and a running back. But he really does need the rushing touchdown, right? I think a couple of weeks ago when he threw for one and he caught one, it was a little bit of an outlier. The Saints are on bye this week. The teams that are on bye, the Falcons, the Colts, the Pats, and the Saints. And Derek Carr did suffer an injury. We'll see if he's ready to go out of the bye. And I don't think we'll see more Taysom if Jameis is under center. I think we'll just see the same amount. And I don't think we saw a lot of him because the game got out of hand. And, he's on out there running as much as we've seen the two previous weeks. He was running the football. He was getting like almost double digit carries. And he didn't get that yesterday because they were playing from behind quite early and often. But I think if you're a Chris Olave owner, you may want Jameis Winston, right? It kind of looked like the Jameis Winston of old. And they were down and he was chucking. And he was more, I think, early on in his career, he was very, pass happy and he didn't care to throw into double or triple coverage, which we like for fantasy. But I think the last time we saw him, like the Saints before the injury and they acquired Derek Carr, was more conservative Jameis Winston. And then yesterday, just being down, I think he forced a few throws, but he forced him to Chris Olave, which is something we definitely like to see. And I think there may be a higher ceiling for the Saints offense, to be honest with you, with Jameis under center. Let's look at the playoff picture here. We'll do some Super Bowl stuff here, but let's take a look at the AFC. Chiefs here at 7-2. Kansas City and Philadelphia playing this week on Monday Night Football. Both teams coming off their bye. Should be a good one. Chiefs slight favorites there at 2.5. I still don't know how the Ravens lost that game yesterday, being up in the second half. And, the Lamar Jackson MVP talk certainly surfacing on the Twitter machine. And I just want to give credit to the Browns, right? Credit to the Browns going into Baltimore and winning that game, and nobody really gave them a shot, myself included. They were down 3 offensive linemen, and I just thought going into Baltimore down 3 guys and, Deshaun Watson just kind of being inconsistent this season, I thought they were going to be in a tough spot. And you saw right away the Hamilton tip pass resulted in a pick 6, but Cleveland's won some pretty big ball games this year. They beat the Niners 19-7, and they beat Baltimore here in Baltimore. Look ahead at their schedule. They got a matchup at home against the Steelers this week. Then they're in Denver to take on the Broncos, the Rams. They got the Jags, Chicago, Houston, and the Jets. There's certainly some winnable games there, and that was a big one. I still like Baltimore a lot. I like their defense quite a bit, despite the collapse and the deflected pass there from Lamar to get Cleveland back inside the football game. I really think of all these teams, and it's always tough to count out the Chiefs, and I really, really like the Chiefs defense. I think it's completely underrated. I think Baltimore is that team that may just get to the Super Bowl here. 9-1 is the best number I'm seeing for the Ravens. The Jags at 6-3 got smacked by the Niners, and he was worried about that happening to Jacksonville with the Niners, losing 3 straight games and getting Debo back in their lineup. And, it's just a different Brock Purdy with Debo Samuel in the lineup. It's really tough for defenses. You have to worry about Debo at the end around touchdown there, or another rushing touchdown from him. Kittle pops off, Ayuk scores a touchdown. The defense worrying about Debo and what he can do, because he does a bunch of different things. It opens things up for other players on the squad. And we did see a bounce back performance from everybody across the board in San Fran. The Dolphins, the bye week, they do play the Raiders this week. So they got a couple games against the Jets over the next couple of weeks, which would be really telling. If Buffalo loses this game, it may be GG for them. It may be all over, because I believe they got a matchup against the Niners coming up, against the Eagles coming up, and the last game of the season will be against Miami. The Steelers took care of the Packers at 6-3 there, the Browns at 6-3, and then we have the Texans. The Texans back-to-back weeks for CJ Stroud and company, and CJ Stroud is in the MVP conversation right now. I'm not saying it's a great bet. I tweeted it out at 66-1. I had some pushback from some people, like, it's a sucker bet. Stop telling people to bet this and hammer it. Like, we're not saying that. We never say that. We talk bankroll management all the time on this show. It's little sprinkles. Nobody is hammering a 66-1 bet. Come on. But he is in the MVP conversation. He deserves to be in the MVP conversation. We'll show the odds in just a little bit. And then in the hunt, the Bengals at 5-4. Tough loss for Cincinnati. got back in that game. The mishap there from CJ Stroud to throw that pick allowed Cincinnati to get back into the game, but he did it again, with under a minute. He moved his team into field goal range, and they won the football game, and they got some winnable games coming up as well. They are in the playoff hunt, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's very, very impressive. I think he deserves to be in the MVP conversation. The fact that this team won 3 games last year and had 3 picks in the first 3 picks overall, or 2 picks, in the first 3 or 4 picks overall. This was a bad football team last year. D'Amico Ryans has them playing, and no Nico Collins, don't matter. Noah Brown had another good game in a row, and Singletary ran the ball, man, and he ran the ball really well, which is one of the big surprises I had. Sell high if you can. Colts at 5-5, and the Raiders sitting there at 5-5. Over in the NFC, the Eagles up at the top at 8-1. The schedule remaining over the next few weeks is as tough as it can get for the Eagles. They play a lot of really good football teams. Talked about the Chiefs here this week, and then they have Buffalo and San Fran and back-to-back. Then they go to Dallas week 14. Then they go to Seattle week 15 before it wraps up pretty easily for them with the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Giants again. So, if you're a Birds fan, you hope that they get the one against Dallas. Even if they struggle in these next 3 games, you hope that they get that one against Dallas, because the Cowboys sitting there at 6-3, everything lining up as of today, would be another matchup with the Niners and the Cowboys, the Vikings playing the Lions, and then the Saints and the Seahawks in the hunt, the Bucks, Commanders, and the Falcons. So in the hunt, not as competitive, really. If you see the AFC teams, is some teams are over 500, at 500, and you see the teams in the hunt here at under 500. I think what you see here is what you're going to get in the playoffs. Could see the Lions. The Lions definitely have a much easier schedule. Could see them get that 1 spot. Philly jump to 2. The Cowboys go on a run here. The Eagles struggle against Kansas City. Maybe they lose that game to San Fran. Then maybe they fall to the 3 spot, or they jump into the 6 spot. So I think if you're looking for long shot bets, there's still like Detroit to be number 1 in the conference, the Cowboys to win the division. Those bets are still still pretty decent odds for those, in particular, those bets. I like the Seahawks squad. He squeaked out a win yesterday. They got a couple games coming up against the Niners, which would, there's a lot on the line for both of those teams, and for the division, those should be really good games, but I still give the edge to San Fran here. And the Vikings and Dobbs and company, right? Another good game. I talked about the addition, not worrying about Addison and TJ Hawkinson, who got double-digit targets, had a touchdown. He was great. Jordan Addison continues to fill in nicely for Justin Jefferson, and it sounds like Justin Jefferson is a real possibility of him playing this week and returning, and if not, maybe next week. Because at the time, they were losing all these football games, and then Kirk Cousins went down, and you start to think like, oh, is it all over for Minnesota where they just shut down Justin Jefferson? But that's not going to be the case. These guys are playing really good football. Madison did suffer an injury. Maybe it's Ty Chandler season finally for us here. We did talk a lot about Ty Chandler heading into the draft. It was a pick that didn't cost you a whole lot, and I drafted him all over the place. Of course, I don't have him anymore. But the injury to Cam Akers, and now the injury to Alexander Madison and in concussion protocol, unsure if he's going to be able to play this week. It does open up an opportunity here for Ty Chandler, who had a rushing touchdown, which is more than Alexander Madison can say, because he doesn't have a rushing touchdown this season. I'm not spending a lot of fab on Ty Chandler. I still think that Keaton Mitchell should be, rostered. Maybe we get into the flex conversation with him. I talked with Jake about him being a sell high candidate, and I think it's probably good advice. If you don't need him, for example, I have him in a couple leagues, and I'm not going to start him over Javonte Williams or Dave Montgomery. Bijan Robinson, who's been struggling, had a nice game. He's on bye. There's a really good schedule for Bijan into the playoffs. But the thing is, like, Keaton Mitchell, he's not getting, I did compare him a little bit to Achane, but Achane was getting a lot of the work. And by the way, he's activated off the IR and could return this week. It's possible. But it's clear that he deserves more touches. And when he gets the ball in his hands, like, he had 4 touches, but he scored a touchdown. He's really explosive, right? There's another play where he almost had a catch. It was a wheel right. He almost had a touchdown catch. He dropped that one, but he deserves more touches. Can't ignore that. And when he has the ball in his hands, he's explosive. So I think he's a borderline flex play moving forward. But also, if you're set at the running back position, you could flip him because at the same time, like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are not going anywhere. Gus Edwards is still the lead. I thought he's the goal line back, but we saw Justice Hill get a couple goal line touches yesterday as well. There's still a lot going on, but I'm surprised his ownership is as low as it is, and he really should be rostered. Same thing with Noah Brown, right? His ownership is still only 25%. This is a guy that definitely should be picked up. We'll see what happens. Like when Nico Collins comes back, I think like it would go Nico and Schultz and Tank Dell, but Brown back-to-back good weeks. CJ Stroud is chucking the football. He's throwing the football a lot. It's a pass-happy offense. He's accurate throwing the football. And the matchups moving forward, I looked at them last night. I can't remember them offhand. I'll just take a quick peek here for a second. They're pretty good. These next three are really good. Arizona, Jacksonville, Tennessee, like from a fantasy standpoint, those are all top 10 matchups and teams allowing fantasy points to quarterbacks. Then it tightens up just a little bit with the Jets. Week 14 will be a good test for them. Week 16, Cleveland has the Titans week 15 and 17, although, been a decent pass defense. I still think that you can chuck on the Tennessee Titans. Let's take a look at the Super Bowl odds before we get into the MVP odds. And then a week 11 look ahead, and we'll probably get out of here. The Niners up at the top at 5-1. The Chiefs at 5-1. These are from DraftKings. The Eagles at plus 550. The Ravens at 9-1. The Lions at 10-1. The Cowboys also at 10-1. The Dolphins at 11-1. The Bengals are sitting there at 13-1. If they can get by Cleveland here, that number will be a lot shorter, especially the Joe Burrow MVP. I just don't think Joe Burrow's in the MVP conversation. He's had too many dud games. He's going to have to basically be perfect here down the stretch. It's possible, but the matchups for Joe Burrow are extremely tough. For example, this week he's got the Ravens, not the Browns. So he's in Baltimore, which we know how good this defense is. Then he has to face the Steelers. Then he has Jacksonville and Indy, which is, layup ones for him. Then he's got Minnesota, not bad. In Pittsburgh, it's a tough one. Week 16 is a tough one. Week 17 in Kansas City. Always seems like these guys are playing each other, the Chiefs and the Bengals. It's 3 straight years in a row near the end of the season. These guys are playing each other. And then he's going to wrap up with the Browns. So the rest of the season, pretty tough. He's got Baltimore, Pittsburgh twice, in Kansas City, and then at home to the Browns to wrap it up. So I don't think that he's worth your time as an MVP bet there. I know we're on Super Bowl odds here. The Jags at 20-1, the Bills at 20-1, the Browns at 30-1, the Seahawks at 40, the Chargers at 55, and the Saints at 60-1. I still think there's good value here on Baltimore at 9-1. This has been the best defense, arguably, all season. I know they had the loss there against Cleveland, but I think they can offer a little bit more offensively. So I believe in their squad a little bit more than I do Cleveland. At 9-1 here, they can get after the quarterback. They can stop the run. Lamar's got, a high ceiling, of course. Odell Beckham Jr. with the touchdown. Mark Andrews is a mismatch. So I like the odds there at 9-1. I think the path is a little bit clearer in the NFC, believe it or not, with the Niners, Eagles, and the Lions and Cowboys. I think that the Niners and the Eagles are still an uptick ahead of the Lions and the Cowboys. It's like learn how to lose before you learn how to win kind of feeling that I have with Detroit and company here. But this is a team that could be playing home football in a dome, which does benefit Jared Goff because his home and away splits over the last couple of seasons have been significant. And that defense is really playing football. I guess like the AFC, I think there's maybe I don't want to backtrack my comments here, but I think there's more pretenders actually in the AFC, like the Dolphins, the Bills, the Browns, the Jags. These are kind of pretenders. So maybe the path is a little bit clearer for the Chiefs or for the Ravens to get on a run. I don't know. I think anybody wants to face Joe Burrow or Josh Allen in the playoffs, but there's some massive issues that I feel is happening right now with the Bills. We'll see how they play defensively tonight. And the Jags, Trevor Lawrence hasn't played good football, and they have a tough schedule the rest of the way as well. We look over at the MVP odds if we try to find some value here. Lamar's the favorite at plus 350. Jalen Hurts at plus 350. Also Patrick Mahomes at plus 350. I still think that this is completely wide open. Christian McCaffrey, they tried to get him a touchdown to extend the streak yesterday. Man, luckily he didn't get hurt. They tried everything that they could, up like 30 points to get him a touchdown at the end. But he's been, if there's a year maybe that it's not a quarterback, this is a quarterback award, but if there's a year like Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill, definitely think Tyreek Hill over AJ Brown. If you're looking for a sprinkle, I think Cheetah and CMC. There's still, we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. It's the MVP conversation has changed every week, right? It was Mahomes and then Tua, then Hurts, and then Hurts had a back game against the Jets, and it was Lamar. And then last week, the media was telling you about Joe Burrow, at 9-1, good value on Joe Burrow, good value on Joe Burrow. And then CJ Stroud beats him, and all of a sudden CJ Stroud is in the conversation here at 35-1. The Texans are going to have to make the playoffs. I don't think that this is a sucker bet. Again, I tweeted it out at 66-1, which the number is gone, but we're not saying a full unit. We're saying a sprinkle, like 0.5 maybe. Because this number, if he continues to play good football, this number is going to go away. And it's all about just a little sprinkle and just trying to seek out some value. We did this with Ohtani at 50-1. We've done this with other players as well, that we're seeing the uptick and get in now before he gets to like 10-1 or something like that. He's 35-1. He's second in the NFL in passing yards. He has a healthy 8.3 yards per attempt, which is the third best mark in football behind Brock and behind Tua. He's had 15 passing touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. It's a decent 61.6 completion percentage. The bottom line is his Texans are in a playoff spot. They just beat the Bengals and Joe Burrow, who everybody loves. His numbers are better than Joe Burrow. He doesn't, he's not going to get the same sort of attention here as Hurts and Mahomes and Lamar. But if the Texans make the playoffs, don't you guys think, and if he keeps this up, don't you think he deserves to be in the MVP conversation? This was a 3-win team last year, a rookie head coach. CJ Stroud is playing really good football, and he's taking care of the football, which I think is important. He tied an NFL rookie record this past weekend with 3 games of at least 350 passing yards. I believe the stat was, I think it was Manning, even though he really struggled with picks in his rookie season. I think it was Manning and Cam Newton. He's going to have another game with over 350 passing yards. Arizona, Jacksonville, Denver to start, as I mentioned, then Tennessee, the Jets, Cleveland, and Tennessee. There's some tough games there for him, but there's a couple really good ones for him moving forward. Like, he could have another really good game against Arizona this week, Jacksonville and Denver, and then this number is gone. Again, we're not saying a full unit, a little sprinkle. He's at least in the conversation, and it's fun, right? It's a cool story. He's playing really good football. The Texans have themselves a winner. If I were today through 10 weeks, I honestly think he would be the MVP pick for me. Of course, the season is not over, but where the Texans were and how he's playing as a rookie quarterback, and the way that he is, the way that the Texans have won games over the past couple weeks on his arm, I think that if I were to pick today, I think he'd be the MVP. I think he'd be the MVP as of today. Of course, we still have another 8 weeks to go here. We'll see how he finishes. I also think that Hurts should be in the conversation as well. Like, he's in the conversation, but this is no value on Lamar, Hurts, or Mahomes. We're trying to seek a little bit of value here. But Jalen Hurts is he's probably the front runner for me at the moment, if it's not CJ Stroud, to be honest, because the Eagles defense has been really bad. Jalen, of course, has racked up a ton of rushing touchdowns, a ton of total touchdowns. It's still Josh Allen who leads in total touchdowns, but we'll see what Jalen does over these next couple weeks in some tougher opponents. But I think really, like, the value is on CJ, CMC, and Tyreek Hill there. Should be a fun race down the stretch of the season. We got a couple questions here. We can take a look at week 11. We can move on here. Perk in the house. I need to upgrade on wide receiver Olave, Lockett, Nico Collins. What do you think about Mahomes plus Olave for Mayfield, St. Brown, Stroud, and Ayuk? Ooh, do you want to deal Mahomes? Okay. I don't think I would deal Mahomes and Olave. Got the bye this week. Man, I don't know if I would do that at all. Stroud and Ayuk is okay. I think I like that one more than Mayfield and St. Brown. I mean, I love St. Brown. I mean, St. Brown, you definitely would figure out your wide receiver troubles with the addition of St. Brown. But I think Mayfield, it's just such a drop off going from Mahomes to Mayfield. I don't mind the Stroud and Ayuk, but honestly, I think I would just rather Mahomes and Olave. Olave's fine. He's okay. Scored touchdown yesterday. Lockett and Nico Collins. I may stay with what you got. If you feel like you're just done with Olave and you need somebody this week, you don't want to deal with the bye. I'd probably go Stroud and Ayuk. Probably go that way. But the matchups for Stroud, as much as we're talking him up, you do have to look ahead. I don't think you want to play. I mean, the Jets week 14 is going to be a tough one for him. That's going to be a tough matchup for him. The Jets have made some good quarterbacks look silly this year. And those 3 MVPs that we talked about, Mahomes and Allen and Hurts, there are 3 guys that have struggled against the Jets. Then you got the Browns week 16. You can worry about it then. I think I'd stay with what you have, man. I think that's where I'm at. Ricky AA in the house. Who should I drop? I got Ty Chandler, Jamal Williams, Miles Sanders. You drop Miles. You drop either one of. Who are you? You dropping one of these guys for somebody? Oh, you already have Keaton. You can drop Jamal or Miles. Either one of those guys. I'd keep Ty. Maybe that is a question you want to pick up Ty and drop one of those guys. I would. I mean, just Miles and Jamal are not doing anything. The dude with Kincaid already lost. He was down by 40. Should I try to get Kincaid and start him over Javonte Williams? I'm already in the playoffs. Talk bye week and Dotson putting up 0 hurt. Yeah, Dotson, man. This guy, just, I don't know what's going on there. 2 targets. I guess on games with Curtis Samuel's playing, it's less Dotson. Yeah, I would lean Javonte over Kincaid. I think the ceiling's probably higher with Kincaid. Like as of for tonight's game, I really like Javonte, man. I think he could flirt with like 20 plus opportunities. I think they could run the ball here a little bit tonight, the Broncos against the Bills. But the ceiling is definitely high. It's hard to argue. I mean, the second most fantasy points allowed to tight ends, and what Kincaid is doing lately has been it's been really noticeable. What do we got here? George Play 0-1. Should I trade Kenneth Walker after a big game? I'm worried about playoff schedule Seahawks. Absolutely. This week is my goal this week to give like 5 or 6 sell highs and buy lows. Basically just from, I just saw a Raheem Mostert notification. Is he okay? He's questionable. I don't know what's going on there. Still early in the week. My goal this week is to come up with like a few buy lows and sell highs, and mostly based on the playoff schedule. We talked Kenneth Walker quite a bit on the Sirius XM show, myself and Jake Seeley, with you every Saturdays for anybody that has Sirius, the FTN fantasy show from 9 to 11 Eastern on channel 87. And we talked about Walker, about selling high on Walker. Not only am I worried a little bit about the schedule, it was a good bounce back game from him in terms of the carries. I don't think you can bank on like the reception for 64 yards. He had a touchdown. I don't think you can really bank. He's catching more passes than he did in his rookie season. He's running more routes. But I did notice a little bit of more Zach Charbonnet over the past couple of weeks, and non-PPR for you too. So it doesn't really matter. I guess he's a little bit more valuable in non-PPR league because he's not really a big player through the air. But I am completely worried about the schedule too. Yes, I would move off from him. This week against the Rams is okay, but San Fran week 12, Dallas week 13, San Fran week 14, then Philly week 15. Those are all, in my opinion, bottom 5 matchups. The Eagles don't give up anything on the ground. The Cowboys are also really stingy on the ground game too. And the Niners, we know that the Niners are a really good run defense and just a really good defense. And this defense is just taking it to a whole nother level. Who should you get? Man, so this would just be like off the top of my head at the moment for players to acquire. Like, I don't know if you can get Bijan Robinson. I mean, he finally had a game. I'm telling people to buy him before this game against Arizona, but the 22 carries is the most he's had, the 95 rushing yards, the third most. He had a rushing touchdown, so he's got 2 in the last 3 weeks. It's possible maybe Bijan owner will be like, no, I'm selling high now. It's possible that the Bijan owner needs a healthy body this week to play. He's got the bye this week. The Falcons, and out of the buys, the Saints, tough spot, really tough one. But then the Jets is a good one, week 13. The Bucks, another bad one, week 14. He didn't even really play in that game against Tampa, so we don't have much to go off of. But the week 15, 16, 17 matchups are basically the best that it can be for a running back. Got Carolina week 15, then the Colts week 16, and then the Bears at week 17. This would just be, I need a little bit of time for this one. I wish I can give you an answer with confidence right now in terms of like the fantasy football schedule. I haven't dove into it too much. We still have the week. We do have this board, which we talked about earlier in the season. We can kind of walk through this from a playoff schedule in terms of running backs. James Conner, no, although the offense will flow a little bit better, but the San Fran and Philly matchup's not great. You see the options here for Atlanta and Bijan. Those ones are really nice. I wouldn't buy Keaton. I think he's a sell high candidate. Buffalo, I'm not interested in any of the Bills. I'm interested in anyone Carolina. Chicago, those couple of those matchups are okay, but I don't know. Herbert isn't. I don't know. Probably rather Walker, even in those tough matchups. Mixon, those matchups are not great. Ford, I mean, these matchups are okay, but I don't know. Like, is Ford? It almost seems like a sideways move to move on from Walker to get Jerome Ford. Dallas, could you buy Tony Pollard? You could probably buy Tony Pollard. These matchups are all right. I mean, Pollard again stuffed 3 times at the goal line. I think he's 3 for 13. We talked about that in the offseason. I talked a lot about Pollard, and I just had a lot of questions about him. He had 1 or 2 games with 20 plus carries. Never really a bell cow back, and I don't view him as one. I really don't. Dallas misses Zeke in those short yardage situations near the goal line, and it was just a good 1-2 punch, man. It really was. But I would buy on Pollard. That's a guy maybe to consider here. These matchups are okay. Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit. They are a really bad run offense at the moment. Dallas, though, and that was the spot last week that he could get. He's got 1 game with a touchdown, and he did come against the Giants. It was just week 1. Denver here. Javante's a risky buy. I would rather Tony. You know what? I'd probably rather Javante over the next few weeks than I would Kenneth Walker and just those tough matchups. You're not going to get any Detroit backs. That's the best 1-2 punch in football on the ground game, Montgomery and Gibbs. I think the next best 1-2 punch may actually be Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. That's a full-on run-first offense, and both guys are eating. And Najee's scoring touchdowns over the past couple weeks. He's catching balls too. It's frustrating if you're a Najee owner or Warren owner. You want one of those guys to go away, but they're both, low end RB2s or flex plays. But I still think I'd rather Walker over those guys. Don't want anybody in Green Bay. Aaron Jones is a guy that's just really tough to start at the moment. I'm not buying on Singletary. I would actually sell high on Singletary. Indy here, you can't get Taylor, but Taylor is a guy that I definitely would like to acquire, like to try to get. Jacksonville, it's tough matchups here. I mean, you get to week 17 against Carolina. That's a good one. But you got to face Baltimore at Tampa Bay. So that's not ideal. Could you get Pacheco? Probably not. I think I'm a Pacheco owner, I wouldn't part ways with him. I like him quite a bit, but maybe you may actually be able to get Pacheco for Kenneth Walker. The matchups here are okay, right? They should be able to run all over the Las Vegas and New England. There's a chance for a couple touchdowns or some touches inside the red zone. They'll score some points there, and New England won't do anything against Kansas City. Bengals will be a high-scoring game there. The Raiders, you can't get Josh Jacobs, but you could have, right? Before the coaching change, the Raiders were dead last in rushing yards, but back-to-back weeks, 50 carries in the last 2 weeks for Josh Jacobs. He's cooking right now, but it's a guy that I'd rather have than Kenneth Walker. You're not going to be able to get Austin Eckler. The Rams, Kyron, it's a risky buy. He's never been a bell cow back, and maybe all the work that he got when they traded Cam Akers was part of the reason he got hurt. It's not that simple. I know that. He will definitely get his job back. It's not going to be this week, though. Another week here of Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson. Henderson was dropped in a lot of leagues. I would try to pick him up. There's not a lot of big waiver wire pickups. Keaton Mitchell, Ty Chandler, Darrell Henderson. This week, I would probably rank them Ty, Henderson, and Mitchell. But Miami, Chan, you maybe you'll get Mostert. You could just say, hey, Jeff Wilson's there. Devonta Chan is coming back. I still think Mostert's going to be fine, as a low-end RB1. Even with the Chan there, They can both do some damage. I would rather have Mostert than Kenneth Walker over Minnesota. Like, you're not acquiring, you don't want to Ty Chandler in New England. You just don't want to mess around. I do like Ramondre, but probably just hold Kenneth Walker there. The Saints, Kamara, could you get Kamara? Probably not. But that's one I would rather have Alvin there. And maybe it's an opportunity to get him with the bye this week. You could pick on a desperate owner. Saquon, no. I'm not doing it. The Jets, Brees, you're not going to be able to get Brees. I don't think you'll be able to get DeAndre Swift, but there's a couple tough matchups for DeAndre Swift, right? He's gonna have San Fran, he's gonna have KC, San Fran, and then Dallas again. So maybe, but come playoff time, like if you feel like you're going to make the playoffs, I would rather have DeAndre Swift than Kenneth Walker into this playoff stretch. Seattle, the Giants, Arizona is pretty good. The Pitt boys, right? We just mentioned them. You're not going to get CMC. And then, you got Walker here in these tough Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh on top of what's to come in these next couple of weeks. Rachaad White, these matchups are just okay. The one against Green Bay is really good. You can run on the Packers, like you just saw yesterday. The two Pittsburgh backs run all over them. It's been a top 10 matchup all year. Rachaad White over Kenneth Walker, that's a guy maybe. I know Rachaad White's been pretty good over the past couple of weeks. He hasn't been super efficient this year. He's catching a lot of passes out of the backfield, receiving touchdown yesterday, and he's just getting all the work, which I really like to see. All the usage is his. He's a guy that caught 50 passes last year. He's basically hauled in everything that's come his way this year too. Tennessee, Derrick Henry. I mean, those matchups are real good. Not as good as in the past. The Texans have been a better run defense this season, but Seattle, Houston. And then we got Washington, Brian Robinson Jr. I mean, maybe people are willing to sell on him, but he's been pretty good. He's been a top 12 running back, and a lot of the usage from him yesterday came through the air. So there's a couple options there for you. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you could, absolutely, I would do it. Pollard and Montgomery, hell yeah. Yes, Gibson is a sell high guy for sure. If you can get anything from Antonio Gibson, I would definitely move on from him. He has been valuable in PPR leagues. It's a flex play. He's got 3 straight games with 5+ catches, which is really what you want to see. But he hasn't had a game with over 6 rushing touchdowns. He's not the goal line back. Play the Giants this week. That'll be a Brian Robinson Jr. game, I do believe. Although we did see in week 7, Brian Robinson Jr. only had 2 carries for 7 yards. That game surprisingly just went sour early for Washington. They got away from the run. But I think that would be an outlier. And if you just look at some of these games where Seattle's playing or Washington's playing from behind against Philly, against Seattle, there's usage for him. And you look forward at the schedule. There's a game here against the Giants that they can control. But you see Dallas, you see Miami on the schedule. Those are games where maybe it would be Antonio Gibson catching a couple passes. But yeah, I would try to sell high on him. I think there's value for him in a PPR league, but you got the bye week 14 too. So you got to keep that in consideration. If you need somebody week 14, he's just not going to be there for you in the final week leading up to fantasy playoffs. But yeah, I would move on from him if you could. I'm going to bring up the week 11 schedule as we walk through some of these questions. Dynasty, would you trade T. Higgins, Dell, Ramondre for Tyreek? Wow, a lot going on there. But man, I think you're giving up a lot. I think that Higgins is a really good buy low in Dynasty leagues. It's been an awful year for him. He could be on a new team, so there's a little bit of risk there, but he also could be in a better situation where he's like the true one there. It's possible. But you're getting Tyreek here, and I dig this. I say yeah. I think it's a lot. I really like Ramondre Stevenson as a back. I don't know the rest of your squad here. It seems like you're probably fine at wide receiver if you're giving up these 2 guys, but you're getting the best player in the deal. See if you can get something else. Like, could you get I don't know what the other team has, but like a Michael Wilson, a Quentin Johnson, I think are good buy low candidates in Dynasty leagues who have just been okay this season. But I like the future prospect of these guys, whether it's Kyler in Arizona or Caleb Williams. And, Quentin Johnson is pretty raw. He did score a touchdown yesterday, but going to be linked to Herbert for years to come. That does excite me a bit here, but yeah, I mean, you're getting Tyreek. So I would lean, yeah. Yeah. Might be able to buy Warren, buy low, get another piece. I would agree. I think that's a pretty good. He is continuing to trend up. I don't think Najee's going anywhere. still goal line back, although we've seen some red zone rushing attempts and some targets for Warren, but we just know it's a run first team, and Warren's really good. So the key is, as Deej said, it's the other piece. I think trading Walker for Warren is a touch of a loss, but if you can get another piece there, I think that's pretty good. I think Rashad White might be a good one too. Brazis, sitting third in Dynasty, trying to sell Devontae Adams, Madison, Moss, and Algier. Who would you target? Looking for an RB, thinking Najee and Javonte. It would be Javonte, right, for Denver. Standard 2 flex. Yeah, bad time. Really bad time to sell Devontae Adams. Extremely bad time. Not doing a whole lot. Did have a decent game yesterday. I think it was his first with double-digit fantasy points since week 4. There's just so much uncertainty at the quarterback position in Las Vegas. What's the future hold here? What's the future hold for Devontae Adams? Is he a Raider? I thought a couple weeks ago maybe it was there's a real possibility of him not being a Raider. But I think that the entire team is feeling really good about where they are. I know Adams is a Raiders guy growing up. And I'm seeing videos of him dancing in the locker room yesterday and things like that. So they're feeling pretty good in Las Vegas at the moment. I don't think that you can get a lot for any of these pieces, to be honest. Like, and I don't mean to be rude here, but for me, I would not be looking to acquire Madison, Moss, or Algier at all. I just wouldn't be interested. I think like Algier is maybe a sneaky buy low because maybe 2 more years, they won't pick up the rookie deal. After the rookie deal is over, he's on a new team, and I think he's a good back. When we saw last year, 1,000 yards. Well, the offensive line is good in Atlanta, but 1,000 yards on basically 200 carries. I think he's a decent running back, but it's like you buy low on him and you stash him for 2 years. It's like, I don't know if I'd like to do that. I think Najee's an okay buy low. I mean, everybody's talking about Warren. Warren looks like a better running back, but Najee's still doing some things out there. I think Javonte Williams is a good. I thought all year he's been a good buy low candidate. So those are 2 guys. Those are 2 guys that I would be looking to get. Yeah. We'll really talk buy lows and sell highs from a dynasty and a redraft standpoint in the next episode. I promise. We'll have some names. We'll really dive into it. I'll have more analysis there. I'm just really looking at the schedule, and I'll identify some dynasty guys that you can go after and try to get here as this is probably the best time of the season in dynasty, right? And owners are I want to win too. Like, I like the future, but who knows if the league is going to even be around next year? Like, that's the possibility too. Like, sometimes these dynasty leagues, they just fold. I'm in it to get wins now. I see some people just tanking, and one guy in my league doesn't want to play Nakua or Achan. He wants to get Marv, or he wants to get Caleb Williams, and I get that. And I think for you guys too, if you can sell off some of these pieces and get some picks and really like stock up on some running backs and through the draft or some wide receivers, you can build your team that way. But also think on the other side, it's an opportunity to maybe grab a couple players that people want to stockpile some picks, and then you can go get championships. It's all about. You get one championship, sell the house for the championship, trade all the first, be the Rams. You think the Rams care that they're just mediocre? Nah, they won the Super Bowl. They traded all those first round picks to get the Super Bowl. Who would you prefer, sending Higgins for Diggs straight up? I still view Diggs as a better dynasty. Is this dynasty again? I still view Diggs as the better dynasty play, even though he's a little bit older than T. Rest of the, I mean, I would imagine it's a dynasty question because the rest of the year you definitely want Diggs. And I still want Diggs over Higgins, but I think Higgins is a great buy low in dynasty because owners may be frustrated with him and they may be wondering about the future. We got one more here. Did you see O'Connell's t-shirt pick? Looks like favorite. Yeah, it looked like Favre. Is that the Favre? I don't know if I saw it actually. I got to take a look. I didn't see it. It looks like Favre. Looks like Favre plays like Favre. Jokes. Okay. Let's look at this week here. Maybe we can get a couple things. Some early leans here on spreads and maybe plays or things like that. So we got we'll start here up at the top with Lamar and the Ravens and the Baltimore Ravens playing the Cincinnati Bengals. So 3.5 favorites here. I have a little bit of a lean here to Baltimore at the moment. Again, I think Keaton Mitchell's a flex play at best right now, a sell high candidate. I see the explosiveness. I see that he's a weapon. Still not going to have him ranked as a top 20 back. So you just may have other options. So he could be a sell high candidate for you. I think he deserves more touches. The speed is on full display. But there's a lot going on in Baltimore. They still have Justice Hill. They still have Gus Edwards. I want it to be a thing. I want him to get a ton of carries and a ton of touches, but I don't know if that's fully going to happen. But he's done enough to deserve maybe flex play, but I think sell high at the moment is possible. On the Cincinnati side of things, it's going to be a tough spot for Chase, but you play Chase. I know some people asked me about Chase and look like a decoy at the start, and then he just pops off. Like, you always got to play Jamar Chase no matter what. If he's active, you play him. The same can't be said for T. Higgins. T. Higgins, you could have some better options than T. Higgins. I don't even know if this guy's going to suit up. We saw Tyler Boyd pop off. We had him in the bet tracker for catches and receiving yards. He's going to continue to get an uptick for sure. Irwin is not somebody that I don't think you can trust this week against Baltimore. He did score the touchdown there. It's really nice to see. Mixon's going to be in a tough spot. He's not going to be ranked as an RB1 for me, but you may have to play him. But don't really love the spot there. And I still think Gus is the Baltimore back to play out of this backfield. Najee and Warren, low in RB2s, still low in RB2s, tough matchups. Warren and Najee, they're catching some balls out of the backfield. We saw a little bit more from Pickens. Deontay was shut down a bit. It's these are first two games. I just low scoring. I don't think we'll see a lot. I do want to give some love to Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore had a good game. And if you look at Elijah Moore at the start of the season, he was getting targets. It's like 3 of the first 4 games is 9 targets. He struggled with some drops, but Sean Watson was looking his way and going after him. And Elijah Moore, although he may not be a great play this week, I do like some of the matchups for Cleveland after this week and moving forward. There's some decent spots. I think he should be picked up. I don't know if we're trusting him yet, but if you need some wide receiver help, the thing is this week, he'll get away from Porter Jr., which is nice, right? Porter Jr. won't be on him. He'll probably be on Amari Cooper. So could be something there. Jerome Ford, great game from Jerome Ford, but Kareem Hunt still found the end zone and still scored a touchdown. I'm still not starting Pickens. I just don't really like this offense. It's a run-first offense. The Raiders, you're rolling out Jacobs. You roll out Devontae Adams. I don't feel the same about Jacoby Myers. I don't like the quarterback play there. On the Dolphins side of things, you're just playing everybody, right? You're playing all the studs. You're playing Jalen Waddle. I've been talking about him as a buy low candidate all year, and he's had much better games lately than he did at the start of the season. And then Josh Jacobs, you're rolling out there. Raheem Mostert. If Devon Achane plays, you play him, right? Because the ceiling is so high. We've seen a lot from him. On the Chicago side of things, could see Khalil Herbert back this week. It is a tough spot. We try to find another option. If Herbert comes back, he could be limited. Foreman, another good game from him. And I just think he's been so good over the past couple weeks that he's just not fully going to go away. Rashawn, just not going to happen for him this year, unfortunately. I think that's another good buy low candidate in Dynasty Leagues, Rashawn Johnson. On the Detroit side of things, right, the 1-2 punch. Talked about Montgomery, you just play him. Gibbs got the usage, got some red zone carries. You like to see that as a Gibbs owner. Still like Sam Laporta, not freaking out there. And then everybody else outside of Laporta and Amon-Ra, just you can't trust at the moment. We'll see Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jameson Williams, and Josh Reynolds. Just can't trust these guys. I'd like to see Fields come back for DJ Moore. Really missing DJ Moore's ceiling without Fields. And I think even still, DJ Moore is like a wide receiver 3 without Fields just because of the upside. I don't want to play any Giant. I would feel a little bit better about Saquon this week than I did this past week. I had him in the 20s. I had fighting with people on TikTok about Saquon Barkley. This is a better matchup. They're only 10-point dogs as opposed to 17-point dogs. Maybe you can move the ball a little bit more, but not playing any other Giant. Can't play Dotson. Terry, dud game, but you can bounce back performance here for Terry and Logan Thomas, maybe desperation, but 2 tight end leagues there. Sam Howell's been great. He's been, it wasn't fantastic in the game yesterday, but he still finished just like 3 touchdowns over 300 yards. So he's still getting it done. He's chucking a lot, right? I believe he's the NFL in passing yards, is he not? Tennessee and Jacksonville. My guy, Kyle Phillips, continues to trend up. It's been 3 weeks in a row where he's trending up here. They took away Devontae Adams, or they took away DeAndre Hopkins, excuse me. I don't think we can trust Phillips, but I mean, I had to start him in a league over Christian Watson. That's where I'm at with Watson. It's been 3 weeks in a row where he's gotten some looks from Will Levis. Some of it's like 2-minute drill stuff. We'll see if he can get on the field a little bit more. but he did lead all Titans in receptions and receiving yards. And on the other side, Jacksonville, bounce back performance here from T-Law, but I would try to sell high if he has a good one because the games are really tough for Trevor Lawrence moving forward after this one. But Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, maybe some better games from them. We'll see if Zay Jones plays this week. And I even in the tough spot against the Titans, he's still rolling out ETN. Dallas, how about CeeDee Lamb? This guy's, man, he's feasting. The last 4 games have been unbelievable for CeeDee Lamb. Still like Ferguson, scored another touchdown. Kind of seems like our guy here. Jake Ferguson, I think top 10 tight end for me, just getting a lot of red zone works and looks, and they can't run the ball inside the red zone. Good game from Brendan Cooks this past week. Maybe there's something there for him in the second half of the season as the number 3. I still think it's CD, Ferguson, and then Brendan Cooks. But against Carolina, it's very possible. On the other side, I wouldn't start Chuba Hubbard, wouldn't start Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen you're playing, but it wouldn't play anybody else on the Carolina side of things. The Chargers still not there on Quentin. He did score the touchdown. I think he should be stashed. Not sure we're rolling him out and starting him. On the other side, it's Romeo Doubs scoring touchdowns. I like Jaden Reed at this point more than I like Christian Watson. I don't trust Aaron Jones at all. AJ Dillon, I just don't trust anybody in this Packers offense. I think Love did some okay things yesterday. I think if you're a Love fan, there's a couple bad throws, but he did some okay things yesterday in the game. He made some, hung in there in the pocket and made some nice throws. But early spreads, I like the Chargers here at -3. I like the Lions. Already put Lions in at -9. What else do we got here? I like the Steelers here at +4 against the Browns, and I have the lean to Baltimore there at the moment. And the Cowboys are going to roll. I know that's a big number, but they're going to win by 14, 17 points against Carolina. We go to Houston and Arizona here. So Noah Brown, right? If you didn't pick him up last week, we'll see if Nico Collins is out, you roll out Noah Brown. If you're in a deeper league, I think you could still probably roll out Noah Brown. I think Brown, though, in terms of depth chart, in terms of pecking order, looks from CJ Stroud. I mean, he's definitely leaned on him over the past couple of weeks, so you could lean on him again. But I still think Collins and Tank and Dalton over Brown, but this guy should 100% be rostered. Michael Wilson is another guy. We've talked a lot about Michael Wilson, stashing him. Hasn't always worked out. He did score a touchdown yesterday. Hollywood just had the one game. I like Hollywood the most, but it's a lot of McBride, right? We got to feel good about McBride with Kyler under center. It was a lot of other quarterbacks targeting the tight end position. Kyler didn't target the tight end position all that much last year. We saw some moments from Zach Ertz, but you got to feel good about McBride, Hollywood, even still, and Michael Wilson as like a dynasty buy low or a stash. Maybe Kyler plays them out of a draft pick and they're not picking Caleb Williams. This is risky, rolling out Kyler, I think, down the stretch. It was more on the Falcons losing that football game, I think, than Arizona winning it. The Bucs and the Niners rolling out everybody on San Fran. I still would play Rachaad White, even though it's a really tough matchup, just the usage stat through the year. Mike Evans has been a beast this season. Godwin, I'd still play those guys. They're just wide receiver, low end 2 for Evans and a 3 for Godwin and a mid to low end RB2 for Rachaad White, and a dud game from K-Dot, and I just can't trust him. It's a tight end position, but he's certainly a guy that's been trending up. Garrett Wilson, you're playing. He's been good. He's been getting a lot of targets. Breece Hall, you're playing. He had this was the first game of the season, right? Breece Hall had like over 100 yards and minimal touches against the Bills. Just give up a lot of big plays on the ground. The Buffalo guys, we'll see what happens here tonight, but you're rolling out the studs. Seattle, right? Lockett bounce back game was more so on Washington. Washington's just been a defense that hasn't been able to stop the pass all year long. Lockett, DK, you're playing. The Rams side of things, we'll see who the quarterback is this week. Is it Stafford? Is it Carson Wentz? It's definitely not going to be ripping. And Cup, you're playing Nakua. I know there's concerns. I don't know if I'm there on Darrell Henderson, but it's one more week. If you need a desperation play at the running back position, Darrell Henderson could get some looks there. Royce Freeman's still getting looks, and I think he may be the goal line back, Royce Freeman, but he's not catching passes like Henderson is, and I like Seattle here at -2.5, even if Stafford plays them beyond the Seahawks. And the Vikings and the Broncos, see what happens here on the Denver side of things. What I'm looking for tonight is Mims. Is Sean Payton lying to us? He says uptick here on Mims. Out of the bye, sometimes we see these rookies take that leap forward out of the bye. We'll see what kind of usage he gets. And I mean, maybe not so much targets. What's his snap count look like? Is he running routes? How many routes is he running? Is he really cutting into Judy and Cortland Sutton there? So I'm looking forward to that tonight, although I think they'll run the football. Dobbs has turned out to he's a top 12 quarterback. I think the way that he's running and the fact that he's leaning on Hawkinson and Addison, and also going to get Justin Jefferson back maybe for this game this week as well. You're rolling out all the Vikings, and I wouldn't sell high on Addison. I still think that there's value for him as a wide receiver 3 or a flex play, even with JJ back. Of course, the targets are going to come down. He probably comes back to being the third option in the offense, but this team can't run the football. And JJ, Addison, and Hawkinson, I'd just rather have them. And then Philly and Kansas City, I mean, you're rolling out all the pieces in those games as well. No Dallas Goedert. I looked at the splits tools when it comes to the last 2 years with no Dallas Goedert. There's an uptick, of course, of Devontae Adams. A slight uptick in receiving yards. I think 20 more receiving yards per game last season without Goedert on the field. And the Eagles will have their hands full with Rashee Rice. So make sure Rashee Rice wasn't dropped anywhere. He would be the guy that it would pick up. And the Eagles have really, really struggled against wide receivers this season. Okay. That's it. We're gonna get out. Ryan has one more comment here. If I made the Tyreek Hill, all right, let's say this again slower. If I made the Tyreek deal, I'd be adding Tyreek to my wide receiver room of CD, Amon-Ra, Olave, Ayuk, and Adam Thielen. That's pretty good. Do you need all those guys? You get 2 flex, right? So you're rolling out. I don't know if anybody could top that, right? I don't think anybody could top that. You're rolling those guys out. Can you play all of those guys in the playoffs? You got Tyreek, CD, Amon-Ra as your 3, Ayuk, and Olave. I would say no, that you can't. Double flex, you'd have one of those guys. So I like this, but then maybe then you can deal Thielen. Could you sell on Thielen and then maybe get him the running back, and then you're loaded, right? I don't know if you need all those wide receivers, but you're definitely loaded at the wide receiver. I'm jealous of all those wideouts. It'd be great. No worries, Brzee. All right, guys, hit me up if you have any waiver wire questions, any season-long stuff. Oh, in the NHL, like Leon Draisaitl over 3.5 shots tonight up against the Islanders. They're in the top 5 in terms of allowing scoring chances and shot attempts and shots at 5 and 5 per 60. So it's a 2-game slate. I put the Oilers fired their coach. Long time coming. Needed to happen. I put in the Oilers to win in 60 as a unit play, and then half a unit on the puck line there. And then I have Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman for shots tonight. Both are at 3.5. They're plus money. I also have Jared McCann at over 2.5 shots. And keep an eye on Oliver Bjorkstrand and Ellie Tolvanen. Those guys have been really, really good. And the Avs are going through something at the moment. They're not playing great hockey. So maybe a point on those guys. But I think McCann has the 3 shots. I think the Oilers win the hockey game. And I think Evan Bouchard will pick up an apple. All right, we'll be back later on in the week. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game, and hopefully the winners are yours. We'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.